How's it going, everybody? And welcome to this episode of the Lonestar Halo Podcast. I'm Fernando, and this is the Lonestar Halo Podcast. I am joined here by Mr. Todd Fox. We're going to talk about what's good in the hood, what's wrong in the hood, all that and more up next.
The hood?
One, two, three, go! Todd and Fernando got the news every week. Walk-offs, strikeouts, who's making a name? Who's in the clutch and who's taking the blame? Lonestar Halo, fucking baseball, here we go. Big hats, bad calls, who's gonna rise and who's gonna fall?
Wow. Hey. How's it going, everybody? It's been a couple minutes since we've been on, but like Fernando said, we're back and better than ever, baby, as we start this Lone Star episode. Fernando, how you been, my friend?
I have been well. I'm, thriving and surviving is the best way to put it. In today's episode, we're going to teach Todd what a labubu is. Todd, do you know what a labubu is?
No, I barely know what a lade, what the thing that cleans your, backside.
Oh, a bidet.
Bidet, there you go, lade.
Yeah, so it's funny. So I was doing a service today at a restaurant that had like a community bidet. I'm not a fan. It had a little hose. It was on the side of the toilet. So, I mean, you're just supposed to take it out. Yeah. No, you know what? Well, they talk about that on the Yummy Nut Show, not here.
Yeah, let's just say I'll finish it off with I wouldn't trust that hose.
Yeah, exactly.
For you to check out what I want. I want balls and
Okay, Roger, we get it.
Yeah, running up my butt right there.
Yeah,
That's the clip I should have played.
right.
For anyone who doesn't watch the post-game show, it's a Roger Lotz clip where he says running up my butt right there.
Yeah, and when he's talking about wearing a thong, so not something I want to picture or even talk about more. So let's get into say Angels baseball.
But if you do want to picture Todd in a thong, that is something that is available. Head on over on the YouTube channel. You can definitely watch a video of Todd wearing a thong.
Yes, you can. Unfortunately,
that is something that does exist out there. Somehow we did not get shut down by what, the FTC?
What is it? FCC. There you go. FCC.
The FCC. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Somehow we did not get shut down for that.
The FDA didn't like my meat either, so that's why I couldn't show that. But
I don't think I would have liked that either. I would have hated that so much. I would have resurrected Rocks in the outfield and probably started over there.
That would have worked with the brand.
I would have had to change my speech a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Start saying things I don't like, but that's a topic for another day.
Yes.
But today's topic, it's been a while since we've come on here and just kind of checked in on the team. The biggest thing that I want to say, and we can kind of spiral it from there. You're on the Halos and Infield group chat, obviously. And what did I say after game one? The Angels won 7-6. And the first thing I said was, leave it to the Angels to win the game, yet lose all the momentum of it. We've been on this network for 4 years. Many, many times have I said, how are the Angels winning games but not taking the momentum out of it? Because it's possible for you as a team to lose a game but take all the momentum out of it. Game 1 and 2, I want to say that Boston was kind of the better team, even though the Angels won. Because, man, the pitching was not there. Today, game 3, we lost 9-11. You put Jose Soriano out there, who this season has been great, or has been terrible. There's really no in between with Jose Soriano. I still like the guy. I still think there's flashes of greatness there. I just don't want Jose Soriano to be the new Patrick Sandoval or even Reed Detmers.
Yeah, I think to get to your first point, I think the Red Sox should have swept. If you think about it, because going into the series, we were talking about, okay, these are three starters right here that don't get much run support. And yes, Kikuchi only got 3 runs, but I mean, the Angels kind of like, you know, he was flirting with disaster that whole game. You could tell. I mean, he was throwing like 100 pitches by the 6th inning, top of the 6th inning, didn't finish the 6th inning because he gave up the 2-run shot. Who knows if the Angels gave him a couple more runs, maybe he gets another W. But for the most part, you know, he wasn't on his game. It's tough in that stadium altogether. And then Anderson, you would think, spotted a 6-run lead in the 1st inning, and he can't hold it either. A guy didn't even get to the 5th inning, and you know, the bullpen picks up a win with Strickland. And then today, you know, you spot him again. You get 4 runs, and if Soriano just gives up 1 in that 1st inning, they wind up scoring 3 more in the 2nd. That should have been an easy W for him. My concern to your second point is I don't want to send down a Soriano. I don't want him to be going up and down like Sandoval did, like Canning did, like Detmers did. Let's just run right through the rough patch. Let him figure it out in the majors. He's not going to figure nothing out in Salt Lake or Rocket City. I think he is what he is. He can become that guy, that number 2, as we've talked about before. Not an ace, but a really good 2. Let's let him earn that 2 spot. And, you know, the fact that we've had this many good starts or quality starts so far this season and only had a few blunders here and there is a testament to, I think, the pitching staff and also the coaching on the pitching staff side. I think they've done an excellent job. That's just my opinion. But, you know, I think in the long run, you just got to ride it out, dude. Unless there's an injury, I really don't want to see these guys regress because I'm already upset that you've brought in Aldegari today as a reliever, as you've been just playing him as a starter this entire time in the minors. Same thing with Kane Dana. Things got to change with that, but I'm more concerned about those guys than I am the guys who are actually starting.
Yeah, the big issue now becomes like, is it worth for some of these guys to learn at the major league level? Are they actually learning at the major league level? Is that the place for them to be? Ron Washington has routinely, and we've said on the show, everyone's really said on their respective shows, whether it's a national show or not, Ron Washington has always had the air about him and has always had people saying like, hey, you know, I credit my success to him. He's always been praised for his ability to develop players. But as of right now, man, there's a lot of these young guys who are either looking really well, like Nolan Shanwell's been looking great lately. Neto has been pretty good. Logan O'Hoppy's either been hit or miss. But overall, he's not doing too bad. But there's also such basic fundamental mistakes that are happening up and down. There's so much mismanagement that's happening of the lineup, of the bullpen. You know what? I like Trout batting 6th. I thought that was a good spot for him. And then Trout's able to bully his way into the 3rd spot in the lineup. You know, and I get it. You know, he is the face of the franchise in theory. So maybe you do have to try to make him happy in that capacity. But, man, there's just been so much things to not like about the last really like couple of weeks of Angels baseball. You had that 8-game winning streak. And since then, it's been either below average to maybe average baseball.
Yeah, as far as the record, I mean, look, if they would have won today, Fernando, you're talking a 2-game swing. You're talking about 29-32, only 3 games away from 500, and with an opportunity to gain ground because last I checked,
again.
Yeah, and me and a thong again. But right now, you instead of 3 back, you're now 5 back. You know, in the loss column. And then as far as your lineups are talking about, yeah, dude, 5 or 6 for Trout was perfect. You know, he came out raking. He was seeing, and granted, he still had a good day today, but my problem is that now hurts the other hitters because if you have Trout at 5 and O'Hoppy behind him at 6, and you have Soler in front of him at 4 and Ward at 3, those guys are going to get better pitches because Trout's right there behind him and O'Hoppy's right there behind him. And you know, Shawneewell's setting up along with Neto. So if you can get through those first 3, you know, maybe it's not so bad. But Soler was getting better pitches to hit when Trout was behind him. All of a sudden now you move Trout ahead of those guys, and they're like, well, let's just pitch around Trout, and then we could throw sliders all day to Ward and make him beat us. And then we could just throw sinkers and sliders down to Soler, and he won't beat us. So to me, you're kind of cheapening your lineup. I love your theory at 5 or 6 for Trout. I really do. And I wish they would have kept him there. Ego aside, I think he would do it, but I think it's more on the coaching staff and the guys upstairs with the analytics.
Yeah, for the record, I like Trout at third more than I like Ward at third. But
that's true. That's true. I was just going by a small sample size.
No. I get what you're saying. And I do want to say this. We always get told here at this network that we're not positive. So I want to keep it positive like Magic Johnson and say that I think that Trout has done a phenomenal job since he's gotten activated from the IL. Yes. He's had great at-bats. He's looking for his pitch. He has not looked overmatched, which right before he got hurt, he was starting to look pretty overmatched. He was having some bad at-bats. He was starting to fall into some bad habits again. We've seen his power throughout this year. Trout has still been putting the ball over the fence. And even since he came back, he's hit a home run. But now that he's been reactivated, we're actually starting to see Trout spray the ball. He's actually starting to make solid contact. He's actually starting to get on base besides a double, a home run, or an out. So it's kind of nice to see, a single. I don't really think I want to see much triples out of Trout. One of my old coworkers, probably not. One of my old coworkers asked me, like, what's your opinion on players running hard down the line on a ground out? Personally, as somebody who played baseball, being extremely honest with you, so you hit the ball to the shortstop, right? I say run as hard as you can until the ball's secured. Once the ball's secured, you can lay off a little bit, right? Because if they're going to make a throwing error, you're probably going to be safe anyway. I don't like guys like Trout running as hard as they can every single time to first base. People are going to call me an idiot. People are going to think I'm crazy, but Trout has such an injury history. Is it really worth him trying to beat out a play at first that there's a 97% chance he's not going to, beat out anyway because it's going to be an out? This guy has an injury history, right? I love his ability to run hard every single game. And I used to really love that before he got the moniker of injury prone. Because look, let's call it what it is. Trout is injury prone. I think it's safe to put that label on him now.
No, you're absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You're absolutely right. If he hits one in the hole, and like you've seen him since he's come back, he's not running so fast to where, if you notice before, like you said, where he slows down at the last second or he's trying to beat it out still, he'll stretch and then he'll start running to the side, like the right side of the first base that he's out, But you see how fast he has to use so much power to slow down because he's running so fast. Recently, since his return, he's not running as fast. And like you said, I'm cool with that. I'm good with that. The problem I have is when you're having these guys roll over on sliders and they're hitting those ground balls that could be a little bit closer than they are, and maybe you throw the first baseman off or the third baseman off. Guys like Soler and Ward are totally just like not even trying really. I mean, they are strictly, and I'm talking about on double plays too, where you should be trying to beat that sucker out. The only one I'm seeing that's doing that consistently good is two guys, Adele and Renifo. Everybody else, when they roll into a grounder or something like that, they're just trotting, dude. Straight up trotting to first.
Yeah. There's a big difference when there's something at play there, like trying to break up a double play. I was more so talking, about like a ground ball. There's nobody on base. You're just trying to run out of first base. But, there's obviously a time and a place. I've never questioned Trout's desire and his, no one's ever said that Trout's lazy running a first base, right? No one's ever said that he's not an athlete. So, but, as of right now, we need to protect Trout at all costs, even for the simple fact of he's taking so much of the payroll, right? Yeah. If he's not going to be healthy ever, you start thinking to yourself, like, well, what can we do to keep this guy healthy? Should he just be a DH now? Has he complete? But, and then he's getting hurt running to first base because that's why he landed on the IL in the first place. That's when you start to think to yourself, is it really worth you trying to run out that ground ball? But
or especially what about this, Fernando? What about, in your opinion, the honks saying, man, I can't wait for him to get fully healthy to get back in the outfield? I mean, considering everything you said, talking about his injury history, do you really want to see him in the outfield? I mean, if they can avoid putting him in the outfield, don't you think that's what they should do?
I think the biggest issue right now is that the Angels don't really have a solid outfield on paper. You got Ward, Mr. Noodle Arm out there, Mr. just average defense. Chris Taylor, by default, I guess, is your center fielder.
Or Adele.
And then you have Soler, because if Trout's playing DH, Soler's got to do that. I still like the idea of, in the future, Nolan Shanuel moving out to the outfield. Maybe you teach Trout to play first base. I mean, happens to a lot of guys as they get older. You don't really have to do too much out there.
Yeah. It's not exactly the hot corner. You just got to learn how to pick, and I'm pretty sure he can, being an outfielder. My thing I worry about with Adele in the outfield, nobody listens to him, number one. And number two, sometimes he thinks he's a center fielder in right field, trying to get in front of the outfielder. So you have it both ways, because when he's out there actually taking command in center field, I don't think he's bad. I'm still under the impression that the best outfielder, which is incredible at this point, is Kyron Paris. He makes the best decisions out there so far out of those not called Mike Trout. But as far as what we got right now, I would have to agree, dude. I can't trust Ward at all. Adele in center field is decent, but nobody listens to him. And right field Soler is like an error waiting to happen. Fortunately, it hasn't happened too many times.
Yeah, for the record, let me see. He's in 20 at bats. He's batting 250, I think, right now in AAA. Kyron Paris.
Well, I mean, I would love for him to come back, because he's our stolen base leader. And he's been gone like 2 weeks already. So,
yeah. Let me ask you this. So, Tyler Anderson gave up 5 earned runs? Yes, 5 earned runs in this most recent start. He is a free agent after this season. So, in theory, at the trade deadline, he could be one of our biggest trade pieces. Is he slowly starting to ruin his value as that ERA is getting higher and higher? Because, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, this guy was what, in the twos?
Yeah, he was like 2.36. Yeah, obviously, I mean, you're going to look at the ERA, but you're also going to have these teams. It depends on how desperate they were. There wasn't too many desperate teams last year around the deadline, especially for what the Angels were asking for Anderson. But I think this time around, I think they're going to be more open-minded, especially if the Angels aren't in it or they're just too far off. And you could justify trading Anderson. I mean, I've heard rumblings, San Diego, Los Angeles, teams like that, even San Francisco might take, so he might still stay on the West Coast. And I think he has a lot of value. But you're right. He can't be having these 4 2/3 like starts or 4 1/3 starts. He's got to get back to getting those quality starts. And I think if he does, the wins, losses don't really matter. If he gets his ERA down to about 3 something or closer to 2, I think teams are going to look at him, even if he's like, at the deadline at like a 6 and 8 guy, they're going to be like, dude, that's just the Angels, man. Like, let's just look at his bottom line. What's he doing with strikeouts? What's he doing with grounders? And how many home runs he's given up? Are the walks down? And if his stats are in the right spot, I can almost guarantee we'll get at least 2 players out of him, 1 major league ready and 1 possible.
Yeah, I mean, teams like the Giants, Padres, and Dodgers are probably exactly what you're looking for. Honestly, I think you could probably get a lot more from the Dodgers than you could from the other teams. And the biggest reason for that is Tyler Anderson is familiar to them, right?
Correct.
He was a Dodger before he came over to the Angels. Had a lot of success there. The Dodgers are struggling mightily right now with their starting rotation and really just their pitching in general. Right, and who would have thought that going into this season, I mean, you looked at that starting rotation and it looked like something out of a video game, right? And now, as Hacksaw said the last time he was on, the Dodgers are really, really getting stretched out there. So the Angels, if they do it right, could take advantage of them. And I say do it, right? Because here's the thing. You can probably get 2 15 to 30-ish, right in that range, right? Top 15 to 30. You can probably get 2 prospects in that range. And just the way the Dodgers farm system is built, If you get two of those guys, those are probably top 5, probably top 3 prospects, really. Christian Moore, Caden Dana would still probably be ahead of whoever they're bringing from the Dodgers. But I would imagine they would jump pretty damn close to the top of the list if they come over here.
Well, actually, too, you can obviously maybe throw in. Well, obviously, maybe it's not two things at the same time, but you could probably throw in Jansen. Familiar with the Dodgers, they need bullpen help. He's solid, and if he keeps pitching solid like this, the Dodgers know him, and they're going to be like, "Well, I don't want him to go to the Padres. I don't want him to go to the Giants." So you can win by looting the Dodgers a little bit in their farm system by saying, "Hey, you don't want these guys to go to your rivals." Maybe you package both those guys. I hate to see them go, obviously, again, but for the better part of the Angels, that's what we're always looking for. We're looking for the future. We're looking for, because these guys aren't going to be around for much longer. They're on the last year of their contract. So let's get the most out of what we can for them. And those are two guys I could easily see be traded back to the Dodgers. And it would be a win-win because we would get some young, controllable talent that's pretty good. And then we can also give them guys that are playoff experienced and World Series experienced.
Yeah, I'm looking right now to see the Dodgers like top prospects. There's a couple guys. I mean, they have Mike Serrata, an outfielder who's expected to make his debut in about 2027. And like I said, outfield could be something to look for. Here's the thing, right? The Angels don't have a ton of outfield depth in the future, and they don't have a ton of third basemen that are brewing just yet. You think of maybe a guy like Christian Moore could slide over, but then who's going to play second, right? Christian Moore is in theory penciled probably next year at second base, if I had to guess. And then the outfield, you look at a guy like Matthew Lugo, he's probably trying to make that jump next year. And then Nelson Rada is probably about 2 years away from potentially making a team out of camp. So, and Ward only has this year, next year left. So there's a lot of long-term question mark for the Angels out there in the outfield. I really want them to start looking in that direction. Looks like with that second overall pick, yes, we're still about a month away from the draft, but there's a lot of people who are projecting the Angels are going to get a starting pitcher. You know how I feel about that. We've talked off air many times. I don't love picking pitchers super early in the draft unless it's a can't miss guy like a Paul Skeens. But, when you pick a pitcher that early on, there's just so much that could go wrong. But that's a topic for another day, clearly. But, a guy like Anderson is going to be pivotal this trade deadline, because even if the Angels are still in it, you can't be stupid. You have to consider trading guys like Ward, Rengifo, Jansen, Moncada, any of those guys, because here's the thing. If you trade Moncada, have I liked what I've seen out of him? Absolutely. He's been a serviceable third baseman for us, right? A bit of a spark plug, if you will. But also, Todd, if you're going to get 3 or 4 prospects, you got to pull the trigger on a guy like that. And I'm not saying they'd be top prospects for Moncada. They'd probably be like, a number 15 or 20 prospect, a guy just out of 30, and then probably just a slap dick guy thrown in there.
Yeah, because think about this. If the Angels are sitting there like 8-9 games out of first place or 8-9 games out of even the wild card by the time the deadline comes up, and this team is still doing the weird things, which is putting up numbers, but maybe not the batting averages, losing games they should be winning, then you really, really know that, hey, you got a nice team on paper, but they're not translating, and they're kind of spinning their wheels. You got a lot of expiring contracts, like you said. You could throw Rengifo in there. If Rengifo gets it going, there's a couple other players that you can possibly deal away that would help. Darno might, be a serviceable backup somewhere, because they could look at him and say, okay, we don't need him in the capacity the Angels have him. He'll fit better here with us, his defensive presence. So there's ways you can pick up. I mean, if the Angels were to do it right and just be like, hey, man, we're going to keep our future, but we're going to trade our vets. And I mean, you could possibly pick up a good 9 to 10 players, best case scenario.
Yeah, and that's the thing. This organization never goes all in or all out. I mean, I guess it's pretty fair to say in 2023 they went pretty all in, right?
But see, here's my argument to that, though. If they were to do that, right, they would be considered sellers. But then the way that Artie looks at it, if you think of what they did this year, what if those prospects aren't ready? You're not going to fill the roster with prospects that you got out of trades next year, or even maybe not even Christian Moore. What if the Angels do what they normally do, which is retool again? So if they have a gap here, a gap there, bring in a free agent on a 1 to 2 year deal like they always do. I mean,
Look,
then you'd be.
I'm okay with that in theory, because here's the thing, right? We're hoping that next year the members of this young core are playing truly meaningful games in September, right? This year we're hoping that they're playing meaningful games in September, and if they do, that's a win. Next year we should really be flirting with the playoffs, and I mean, like, at the end of the season we should be like in third place, just miss the playoffs by like 2 or 3 games, right? That would be this working phenomenally. And in 2027, that's when this window is supposed to open. Now, it's just so frustrating because we've been on this number for 4 years. And Todd, how many times have I said, hey, next year the window's going to open? 2 years, the window's going to open. I feel like I've said that every time, and you've always agreed, because it's just, we keep waiting for these guys to take the next step. And unfortunately, anytime they take a couple steps forward, it's 4 steps back. You know, we saw great baseball during that 8-game winning streak. What the hell happened to that team? Because after that 8-game winning streak, they weren't just barely losing. You know, look, I can live with an error happening and, man, that game just got away with us or away from us. That's baseball, right? That's the beauty of this game. Sometimes it's a game of inches, right? And when you're expecting the Angels to lose a game by a couple inches and they weren't even in the goddamn ballpark, that's when it gets frustrating. I can live with these young guys making those little tiny mistakes to lose a game, because that's baseball, baby. That's learning at the major league level. But what we've seen lately has not been that. It's just been bad baseball. It's been no situational hitting. You mean to tell me that your offense scored you 9 runs and you can't win the game? That's embarrassing. These are major league pitchers. And it's funny because we've given the starting pitching a lot of credit, but yet Tyler Anderson sucked a couple days ago. Jose Soriano sucked today. You say Kikuchi didn't look that great yesterday. I mean, sure, he didn't do that bad, but he didn't look as good as he has. You say Kikuchi, could you not throw strike 1 all of a sudden? What the hell happened? And then the biggest thing that upset me, the first inning of today's game, the game that we lost, for anyone listening, the final game in the Red Sox series, the home plate umpire had the tightest zone. Mm-hmm. He wasn't giving anything. He wasn't doing the Angels any favors. But how come nobody's chirping out there? Barry Enright, where are you at? Ron Washington, where are you at? These guys in the coaching staff routinely continue to show that they're not going to bat for their guys, and it's so frustrating because Ron Washington's on the tail end of his career. He's got nothing to lose, man. Go out there, show these guys that you want to win for them that you want to stand up for them, because that's how you fire these young guys up, right? Because whatever's working what was working clearly isn't working right now.
Yeah, and to play off your first part about being frustrated from game to game and stuff like that, when they were winning in that 8-game winning streak, they were having bats like Shawna is now in Boston. Like every at bat was like 6-7 pitches almost, at least 5 pitches thrown. And then they come home and they're hacking at everything. And it's like, wait, you guys went back to what you were doing before it happened. And then they come here. We had no expectations after being, they were playing mid to average in Ohio. And you're like, crap, man, let's see what they do in Fenway. All of a sudden they come out with a great, at least hitting approach for most of, these 3 games, with the exception of that gap between game 1 from the first inning to like the 6th inning. They started putting together really good at bats, and you're like, okay, I like what they're doing. Now it has me thinking, are they going to switch things up again? Because it's not like how they found something and they're going to ride it until the team adjusts to it. We haven't seen the teams really adjust and stop the offense. We've seen the Angels stop the offense, and that's what's been very frustrating. Because again, when you're getting pitchers who are pitching above their heads at times, pitching a little bit better than they should, or what happens in this series, they don't get the breaks, they don't get the umpire calls, they get errors behind them. Then you see the warts once they're thrown under extreme pressure. Then the offense has to pick it up. So I don't know. This team is finding ways to lose. It's also finding ways to upset the things that they are actually progressing on. And yeah, I don't want to see this type of baseball through the end of the season. I do like the fact they competed today, but damn, dude, I mean, as easy as you could say Boston should have won this series, the Angels should have mollywopped the freaking Red Sox. I mean, they had the right game plan. They just didn't execute.
Yeah, like I said, man, there's no excuse for your offense coming out there, really this whole series, and you just not being able to get the job done today. I mean, they were just bad pitching up and down. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just really, I think what it is them not going all hands on deck. You've been saying for years, and that's like the most frustrating thing about this being our fourth season is just, man, it's just the stuff that we said last year still applies this year. Same with the year before that. How come you have an off day tomorrow and you're not going all in to try to win this game? Here's the thing. We would have been 3 games under 500 with Seattle, who's no longer in first place, at least not when I checked last. I know Houston kind of leapfrogged them. You could have at least caught up to them. And then in theory, maybe you could have been flirting with second place if you would have played that series well. Maybe Texas would have lost. And then you would have had Sacramento. God, I had to fight the urge to say Oakland right after that. And the Athletics are playing some atrocious baseball right now. Also, they're like 11 games under? I think 11 games back right now, something like that. So they are falling flat on their face because they were hot for a little while then. So if you would have done this right, you would have won today's game. You would have taken the momentum. You would have had an off day to recover. And you would have just, let's just say, won 2 out of 3 against Seattle, maybe even won 2 out of 3 against the Athletics. We're talking about the Angels sitting pretty against Baltimore on a road trip and then the New York road trip. So, yeah, it's so frustrating. We're playing the what-if game. It's just I want these Angels to take the next step because that's what we need out of these young guys. They've had enough time to play mediocre baseball. And you know what? Nolan Chanuel, like you already said, I need to give him his flowers. Great series for him. Loving what I'm seeing out of him. Some power starting to show. And I'm not talking about the launch angle power. I'm talking about we're starting to see some doubles come out of him. He's having great at-bats. He's having long at-bats. He's making good, solid contact. And that's more so what I mean by the power. I don't want Nolan Chanuel to be hitting a lot of home runs because that's just not his game, and it shouldn't be his game. But I love him being a doubles guy. I like him driving it off the wall because that's the kind of power that Nolan Chanuel should be producing if this is working. Because he's compared to Luis Arias a lot, but he's not Luis Arias because Luis Arias has no power. Luis Arias' only game is driving it between the outfield and the infield, right? It's line drive, and it's going right there.
Yeah, you're getting really good at bats by Shawnuel. And like you said, the power doesn't need to be there at the 2 spot right there. And, a lot of people want him to be more powerful at that first base side. But, also Mike Trout, as you were saying earlier, flat bat head. It's, he's not doing the launch angle thing except that home run where he waited for that 3-1 pitch. But to get to your other point, this, I would have to say, to play the what if game myself, there's been 10 games, Fernando, that they've given away. 10 games. And 3 of which have been on getaway days where they're just like, you know what, fuck it. We're going to just play these guys because these guys aren't available. We're going to go with a rookie Dana, or we're going to go with Aldegari, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. We're definitely not pitching our best if we need them in our worst situation, in our most, high pressure situation. Yeah, those guys aren't available. And, by the way, that power hitter, that catcher, they're sitting too. It doesn't make sense, Fernando. That has pissed me off so much because, again, you can take, like you said, that momentum all the way home saying, hey, man, we're riding a 3-game win streak. We just swept Boston in Boston. Now we got Seattle. We're feeling good about ourselves, right? Now you're coming home and you're like, damn, we got Seattle. We got to reset. We're not the Dodgers. We're not the Padres. We're not the Yankees. We're not the Mets. where, okay, we've won 2 games. The guys have played about for a 5 or 6 game stretch consecutively. Let's give them, some of our stars a day off before a day off, right? No, we have to earn that, Fernando. We're nowhere close to a playoff team, nor have we been for the last 10 years. So if we had a back resume of making the playoffs, being in a good spot, like doing the whole social, well, they start slow, but they'll catch up later, which they normally did, right? We don't have that luxury. So the fact that you can step on a team's throat and it's not going to kill you, and other teams in the league use their relievers, like they were bitching and moaning today. Oh, this reliever pitched 3 days in a row. And Gooby had, or I heard on AM 830, Mark Langston said, boy, Jansen hasn't pitched 3 days in a row since last year. Well, what's the problem then? It's I don't understand our logic, but I do know where it comes from. It's the analytics department, that geek from Boston and all his cronies have really messed up what this team can do. And my hot take, Fernando, is this. I killed Phil Nevin, and I did on the post-game show, for saying when he said a couple years ago, we don't chase wins. And I thought about it after today's loss, and I'm like, you know what? That was a stab at the organization. That wasn't his mindset. I owe that man an apology, because I'm over here killing him when he's telling us, hey, man, I would use my best reliever, but I can't because they don't want me to. I think that's what it comes down to.
I want to ask you this. So now that we're Phil Nevin's gone, do you think he was the problem? See, because I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Phil Nevin. I mean, growing up in San Diego, I watched them play. Yeah. So I've said that before. So I understand. Just like Matt Vasgersian. A lot of Angels fans hate Matt Vasgersian. Growing up in San Diego, Matt Vasgersian was the man I fell asleep to every day. No Diddy.
I actually like Matty V. I said on the post game this year, he's vibing better than Wayne does with Gooby. Like him and Gooby are a good tandem.
I want to ask you this about Wayne Randazzo. You've been very critical about him in the past. Wayne Randazzo has been very no nonsense this year. I don't know if you've noticed that about his style. He's been very critical about the organization. Would you give him his flowers for this year? Because he's been very realistic. He's called out bad outings. He's called out bad performances. He's called out, bad decisions by Ron Washington.
Yes, I will, because I'll give him his flowers because he's been on it. He's been the kind of announcer we've wanted. Same with Matty V since he's come in there. Your Patios, your Goobies, you know what you're going to get with those guys.
Yeah. They're not stand Patio.
Yeah, I can't either. He's the worst. But when it comes to V and you're right about Wayne. Wayne's been very good. And to get back to your point about Nevin, I think he's like Ipe. He's the fall guy. He was never going to be the long-term solution. You could tell that he was just a hire to fill the void till they could get someone else in there. And I think we never got to, now that I look back at it, Monday morning quarterbacking it, in my opinion, I grilled and killed that guy when it was really the analytics and the organization that handicapped him. I don't think he was a special manager at all. I think he was a little bit in over his head, even if they gave him free reign. But I believe that he would have did a better job had they give him free reign. I think they handicapped a guy who was old school, and it didn't work.
Are you calling for anyone's job right now?
I would if I didn't know about the organization right now. I don't think you can make a move other than fire Johnny Washington. I'm still on that bandwagon. But as far as Ron, I would say there's no point in it right now. I'd say just let him ride out the rest of the year.
Okay, because there's another podcast that's been calling for Johnny Washington's job. A very original take, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know who they got that from.
Yeah, or where they got what I say? If Taylor Ward is a guy, you're in good shape. If Taylor Ward's the guy, you're in trouble. Word for word, I was like, that's what I say. I've been saying that for years,
bro. You said that.
It's not like we don't have 4 years of podcasts of me saying that.
You said that 3 years ago, bro.
That's what I'm saying.
They're all, hey, I have a hot take. Tickle, tickle.
Yeah. Hey, I will say this. In this industry, it is hard to have original takes. I will give that credit. I'm sure you could probably find things we've said, but when you do this enough, of course, you're gonna, But hey, imitation is the highest form of flattery, so I'll take it.
There you go. Take it that way anyway.
That's where I got right now, man. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about where we've been in terms of Angels baseball. It was a tough series against the Red Sox. It really was. It seems that we both kind of agree. Yes, the Angels won the series, and that's great in theory, but I feel like they didn't win the series, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree. And that, to me, that just makes me more interested on how they're going to come home at 10-15 at home. Can we not only win at home, but get back at these divisional opponents that have wrecked us at home the last 5 years or so? Again, despite sweeping Sacramento, we still got a losing record within the division. So that Seattle series, I'm so interested to see how they come out against them.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see how the fans are. Honestly, I think that maybe if they would have swept Boston, the Sox, they might have had a little bit more of an ability. Because what is it, a beach weekend this weekend?
Yes.
Maybe the fans would have gone out there with the City Connect. Look, I'll say this: we just saw Angel Stadium full last weekend. People show up to see the Banana Boys or whatever play baseball. So. We'll see what happens this weekend. But I will say this: if they're able to sell out, I know you're not going to sell out all the games there, but if they're able to sell out and you can't even fill the stadium like 60% this weekend, that's going to be pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, it's going to be, think about it, man. It's not the Oakland A's of, your Miguel Tejadas, to where they would have a decent following coming to Anaheim Stadium. You'd have a lot of yellow and green in the stands. They're gonna be drawing flies when Sacramento's here. So
I know that for sure.
They've got to show out against Seattle. I know Seattle fans travel pretty good. I know they're geeked up about their team, but we need our fans to come out and support this team because, again, I can't stand the fact that we still got Angel fans yelling at us for going to games when it's like, bro, ticket sales don't make Artie rich. If you buy shit inside the stadium, if you park inside the stadium, yes, that is where he makes his money. He doesn't make hardly anything. Thus, the Big A plan, where now you can pay $49 for an entire month's worth of baseball, except the Dodgers, and you can get that seat and go as many times as you want. So again, ticket prices aren't nothing. He's going to make money off of you buying overpriced beer, overpriced nachos, overpriced food, and then parking in his parking lot instead of parking for free at Noble or other sites around the stadium.
Yeah, exactly. They make all their money off of concessions and merchandise and stuff like that. So, if you want to get Angels merchandise, there's a ton of individual podcasts and pages that you can get various shirts and stuff from. So you don't need to directly support the Angels in that regard. And let's face it, the Angels have terrible merchandise. Whoever does their merchandising for really the last decade needs to get fired. When I went to Angel Stadium, I went to 3-4 different shops because I wanted to get Zach Neto something. No Zach Neto t-shirt or anything like that. It's just, I found a single Logan O'Hoppe t-shirt, and it was one of those jerseys. It wasn't a cool shirt. Don't get me wrong. I would get a Logan O'Hoppe jersey. He said I got that sweet jacket you saw. But how come I go to Petco Park and they got Padres goddamn everything imaginable? When you go to Angel Stadium, it's like shirts like this. Just boring Angels baseball red shirt.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, did you catch that one in the game? That's what it looks like, the ones that come out the cannons. But, I mean,
no.
Okay. It just looks like one because I have one just like that. But the problem is, they don't embrace the past. So it's like you might see some old California Angels with some new style type clothing, but those are few and far between. You were able to get your retro jacket. They barely started doing that. But if you're talking about, hey, embrace the past, do you see a Brian Downing there? Do you see a Sean Figgins? Do you see a Garrett Anderson? Do you see a Troy Gloss? No, you see none of that shit. And that's the problem. I'm totally in agreement with you. You can go back to the Padres team store and you can probably find some Ken Caminiti, but you're not going to find no Angels past.
Yeah, I mean, you have a literal gift shop called the Hall of Fame shop, right? So if you go right above to the second concourse, not the main concourse on the bottom, where you have the main team shop. But if you go upstairs, you have like the Hall of Fame section there where they now have an actual display case with a bunch of Angels memorabilia.
Yeah.
That's such a missed opportunity to not truly make that a Hall of Fame store, because they call it the Hall of Fame store, but they don't have a lot of vintage stuff. Yeah, now they got the jackets, but like you said, I should be able to go there and get a Brian Downing jersey, maybe some Gene Autry swag. It's just, this stuff writes itself, and it's, Artie, you love money. I don't understand why you hate the past of this organization so much. You know, he just wants to pretend it didn't happen. But retro sells, right? I mean, look at Disney, what they're doing with their 70th anniversary right now, right? It's all 1970s themed, funky colors and stuff like that. And people love it. Disney does it the right way in terms of merchandising, right? Hire one of those people to come over here and modernize the merchandising, because that's the thing, man. That's how you make money. People will buy it. It doesn't matter how angry people are. If there's a sick Zach Neto t-shirt, Logan O'Hoppe shirt, people are going to buy it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And there's ways to do it, too. I mean, just get in bed with Disney again. I mean, you could turn things so much better. I mean, you can get creative in it to make cartoons of the Angels baseball players like they did in the past. So there's ways to do it. So why are we giving out good advice to Artie Moreno? But
yeah, next one's free, Artie. Right, this one's free. Next one's a nickel.
Yeah, the other podcast will steal it, and then you can be like, "Hey, we came up with a good idea."
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, that's all I got too, my man.
Yeah, no, yeah. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Well, we got you here. Let me go ahead and do some of the yard work. 714 tickets. If you want to head on over to any of those Angels games, or if you want to go to any other sporting event, you use the code HITI, HITI. There's no hidden fees. The price you see, that's the price you're going to pay. You know, you might get a little extra added in taxes. That's about it. You know, and sometimes the tax is built into the price. I've had a couple times where like the tax was the only difference. But, you know, it's not like Game Time or whatever, StubHub, where it's like, oh, $23, and you click on it. You're trying to get 2 tickets. Like, you know, it's like $163. And you're like, huh, what happened? So, yeah, price you see, it's the price you're going to pay. Use the code HITI, 10% off every single purchase, not just your first one. You also get 5% back in future purchases. We've had some people say, only 5%. Guys, it's free money that they're giving you back because they already give you the 10%. You get that additional 5% in the future. Head on over to Brewheim, mention Halos in the Infield for drink specials. And if they don't give you the drink special, let Todd or myself know, because that's something that we and you guys are promised. OC Dugout, head on over for all your memorabilia. And then Max Market Pros. Also, I want to say give us a 5-star review. Let your friends know. Let your family know. Tell them what we got going on over here. Follow us on all the social medias if you don't already. At Halos in the Infield. Make sure you watch Mr. Todd Fox for all of his post-game shows where he reacts and takes your phone calls. The only post-game show that isn't about yummy nuts. And he actually cares about your opinions, which is why he lets you guys on. But that's all I got today.
See ya.
Lonestar